What questions you got?
So I'm a one-man show. I do roughly 15 deals a year right now. I've done 1 or 2 flips in the last 180 days, but the grind's wearing me down. How can I make money in the business without having to work more than I already do?
What's your current staff?
Myself, and then I have a VA bookkeeper.
And what kind of 15, like the 15 deals, what kind of deals are they?
So 13 of them were wholesale deals.
Okay.
So I was working with a local realtor and then this other bird dog individual who's been running around and finding me properties.
Yep.
They would send them to me, I would buy them, and then they would send them to me, and then 2 of them I bought. I did fix and flips on them.
So you got 13 wholesales, 2 flips?
Yep.
And then your staff is just you?
Yep.
You?
And I have a VA.
1 VA?
Yep.
And that VA does books?
Helps me with books and then helps me with the lead management, like emailing back and forth with the realtors and some other folks.
All right, so it's kind of you kind of have a books/assistant.
Yep.
All right. Who else has got a question? Or
for someone who's new to the game, you've been in this for over a decade. If you had to completely start over, what tools or skills would you need to build your business back?
tools or skills to start over? Like, what are the things what would I want to know before I started?
Yeah, like if you were to go back in time and start over.
We're going to put you back on the mic when the time is right, because there's more questions to be asked there.
Sure.
What else?
Hey, Frank.
Hi, Scott.
So, I've got a little bit of deal flow. So I get properties that come across my desk. And, in the past, I've not really done a lot of this, but I've done some wholesaling. I've done some flips. I even own a couple rentals. But so I get a property, I get a possible deal, and I look at it. And it's hard sometimes for me to know, like, is this a wholesale deal? Should I just pass this one on? Should I take it down myself and flip it? Should I keep it? It's like I just don't have a really good system for knowing what the best exit strategy should be every time I get, one of these properties I see. Love to know how you do it, how you figure that out.
All right, what else?
This is Rick from Seattle. So I quit my job. I have a bunch of cash. So I quit my job. I know it might not have been the best idea to do, but one thing I've realized now is when I had my job, it was much easier for me to get money from banks, right? Because I was a W-2 employee. I was able to, get lending easily. In what ways, when you started out, did you leverage local banks in order to get money for both rentals and possibly for fix and flips? Like, do you use local lenders for fix and flips? Do you use hard money? I'm currently using hard money. Super expensive. And, with all these supply chain issues currently, my, interest cost is going through the roof. So I'm trying to find better interest rates, both for fix and flip in construction cash, but then also using local banks for rentals.
Couple questions.
Yeah.
How long ago did you quit your job?
6 months.
So it's been 6 months. All right. What are you paying for hard money?
12 and 2.
Okay, so 14% APR.
Yep.
Do you have any rentals?
I have 6.
And how are those funded?
I bought those prior to quitting my job.
6 and how are those funded?
Those are funded through conventional mortgages.
So like the golden tickets, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, from my W-2.
Okay, so 6 golden tickets. And you said your name is Rick? Mm-hmm. All right, Rick. I'm going to come back to this, okay? Mm-hmm. All right, awesome. That's a great question. What else?
Hi, I'm Pete from St. Petersburg, Florida, and I'm doing a little bit. I have a VA, I have a bookkeeper, I have one acquisitions manager that helps me find properties, and I know sooner or later I'm going to have to do more heavy construction. Right now we're buying primarily 1950 era single level concrete block structures in St. Petersburg, and they require very little updating, mostly just cosmetic stuff that I would never have to pull a permit for. I know sooner or later I'm going to have to. I want to know how to deal with construction folks.
All right. So with these, how many deals a year are you doing?
We're doing about 7.
7 deals a year. What do you make on average? Like 25, 30 grand a house?
Yeah,
Kind of the
yeah. Right now, it's a hot market.
Yeah, it is. 7 deals a year. So you have someone, is this a full-time person or a part-time?
No, he works for me when I need him.
Okay. Okay. And are you doing the construction yourself?
Yeah, well, yeah, me and my family.
Okay. So you have a construction background and you've done this thing before.
No, the construction we're doing is primarily just cosmetic.
So you just learned on the fly.
Yeah, right.
How do you fund these?
With my profits from my last house.
Okay, so you just pay cash.
Yeah.
You do 1, maybe 2 at a time. All right, that's a good spot to be in. Do you have a need to do more than the flow? If you had more deal flow, would you like to utilize banks?
Yes, I would. I know that if I'm going to get more deal flow, I'm going to have to get more into the construction side, though, and that's what I really need help with, is understanding how to deal with these people in the construction industry, because I'm going to have to pull permits and stuff.
Got it. Who else has a question?
Hi, I'm Mary from Ohio. I'm having a hard time finding contractors that stick around and do their job.
Join the club.
And I can't grow my flipping business without finding stable contractors. Do you have any advice for me?
I will say the following about people in construction. Anybody in construction who tells you they don't drink, they're leaving out anymore. In construction, you are relying on unreliable people. So it's part of construction. There's a low barrier of entry and most people end up there. They don't choose to get there. But I can show you some tips and tricks to find better ones versus the ones that are gonna drive you nuts. But in construction, you're gonna get driven nuts. That's just part of the deal. But we can come back to that, Mary. Any other questions? No. All right, cool. So let me show you what I would do with this, right? So the way that I see 13 wholesales and 2 flips, it's one person, it's a VA, right? Which means a virtual assistant. And I'm gonna assume this person is offshore. And the goal here is how do I get to scale? So we're gonna write down the word scale. That's what this is a question about. This is driving for dollars, 15 to 20 deals a year. I've quit my job. My cell phone is the same number that people, this is inaccurate. This is driving for dollars. You're doing about 5 to 7 deals a year. And your goal is to get to 15 to 20. So I think there's a few things here. Number one, you need a real, reliable lead flow. Then you need some staff to help you get there. So number 3 is tools, skills to start over. So let's go into this. We could do this a couple of ways, right? I could tell you what I would do, but it doesn't matter what I would do. Let's talk about what you would do. I think the thing that's important is this. Do you need a paycheck or do you want longer term growth in earnings? And then that's 1. 2, do you want to utilize your strengths? So what do you think you've got that other people don't?
The answer to question 1, I would like long-term growth and earnings.
Okay, so you're looking for like holds, things along those lines.
Correct.
Okay.
The answer to question 2 is I have a background in real estate and mortgage, so I'm great with people, customer service. I also I'm co-owner of a small construction company, so I'm familiar with how all of that works. I just would like to kind of know what would really boost us and get us kind of started.
Okay, so you want to hold some rentals. How are you finding your rentals now? Are you using your mortgage contacts and just people that you know that have distressed sellers?
Yes, I know
and you're buying off the MLS?
Correct.
So you have cash to invest. You've done a nice job to be able to do that. And now you have a little bit of a nest egg, and what you want is you want yield.
Correct.
Okay. All right, perfect. So, Scott, your question was, what do you do with a deal, right? You need to analyze a deal. You will need to say, okay, I've got a lead in front of me. What should I do? So this is going to come back a lot to what Vicky said a second ago about what's important to you. So I will frame this around what's important to you, and you have to look at it from that perspective. So it should be, should I wholesale it? Should I fix and flip it? Should I turn it into a rental? And this is the cool thing about this business. If you can find a distressed lead, do with it whatever is best for you. So we can pick that, but I'll show you how we go through and make the decision. Should we rent it? Should we not? All right, over here, I think you said from Seattle, you quit your job 6 months ago. So there's a couple of things in here. There's the golden tickets, right? The golden tickets are a big deal. I wasn't smart enough to take advantage of the golden tickets. That means that's a Freddie, Fannie back mortgage, conventional terms, incredible 30-year fixed, it's like real money, like a regular mortgage, but the difference is you're an investor, right? That's really good. So now you've quit and now you're gonna pay some points and you gotta figure out how to find cash. So we need to find cash in the arena of fix and flip and then potential holds with rentals.
Correct.
Perfect. All right. Pete, you've got a small staff. You're using your own cash. You think you need to build a construction department, right? So that's what we need to really focus on is staffing, right?
Yeah, I know I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, so that's where we're going. And then Mary is dealing with some subcontractor problems. Is that accurate?
Yes.
All right, so let's do this. This is construction, staff, how? All right. So let's start with this. Virtual assistants, offshore, bonus. There's scale. So I think what we should start with is lead gen. Everything starts with lead gen. 2, so there's scale, there's construction. There's construction. Three, there's money. There's money for fix and flips. There's money for rentals. And then 4, there's staff. And if there was a 5th, it's what is what? So let's make sure I got this. We got cash, wholesale fix and flip rentals, holds. Yep, needs staff, subs. So construction, staff, subs. So if we go through this entire thing and we talk about lead generation, construction, we talk about how to staff it versus how to use a subcontractor. If we talk about money for fix and flip or for rentals, we talk about where to incorporate staff. Full-time, 1099, or a VA. And if we figure those things out, then we get to the luxury position of I'm generating regular leads, and not only am I generating regular leads, I want to make discerning choice of do I wholesale it, do I flip it, or do I keep it as a rental? Do I cover everything that's up there if we go through this?
That would be awesome.
That'd be great.
All right, wonderful. So let's get rid of this. All right. What's the difference between a pro and a hobbyist?
Lead flow. Being able to generate leads consistently.
More.
Being able to
Anybody else?
consistent profits.
All of that's true, but I think the difference between a novice and a pro is a novice, things fall in their lap. A pro purposely generates leads. What's the difference between things falling in your lap and things actually coming in systematically? What comes down to it?
Consistency.
There's a decision There's a process. There's types. There's consistency. And then there's money. So I think with lead gen, you need to decide if you're going to be a pro or a hobbyist. A pro pays to play. A hobbyist stumbles into deals. So let me explain what this means. Pay to play. Who in this room spends more than $10,000 a month on leads? We spend somewhere between 50 and 150 grand. It depends on if you want to talk about staff, marketing, what you want to look at with it, right? So when people are kind of in this initial stage of wanting to go from a part-timer to a full-timer, this is where it all starts. If you can't generate consistent leads, if you cannot generate phone calls or things in your email that you can follow up with, or appointments, you can't go pro. You're just a hobbyist. So there are two different types of strategies. There's hustle and there's pay. Hustle. Help me with some hustle strategies.
Driving for dollars.
Yep. What else?
Bandit signs.
Yep. What else?
Working with realtors.
Yep. What else?
Getting on buyers lists.
That's pretty much it, right?
Could go to Craigslist, look for people trying to rent property and see if they want to sell it.
Fizbo.
So I would tell you that realtors, networking are pretty much the same. It all comes down to getting in front of people with lead flow. There aren't a ton of people with lead flow in a market like this because there's just not a lot of lead flow. So it's very, very inconsistent. The time to do this is when the market is down. However, if you can get on a buyer's list or find off-market stuff, right now, what we do inside of our business is we wholesale 75% plus of our inventory. It's actually closer to 90 right now because people are paying stupid numbers. So we do that. But I've been in this business for 12 years. It used to be about a 33% flip. Wholesale, fix and flip rentals, that's about healthy, but it starts to skew in different directions depending on the market. But right now there are a ton of wholesalers. So this is just networking. Where can you find people like this? Wholesalers or FSBOs?
Facebook, Craigslist.
Sure. So like everybody's going to tell you go to the local RIA, right? The local RIA is full of a bunch of dipshits that don't know what they're doing. You don't want to go to a local RIA. What you want to do is you want to ask around title companies. Start here. Say who are the best? Who is best at wholesale? And don't give me one name, give me 5. Call those 5 people and get on their buyer's list. We blast on average somewhere on the low months 10, upwards of 25 houses per month. If you have access to our deal flow and you just pick a 10th or a 5th or 5%, you can easily find one deal a month. So this is how you want to do this. I will tell you right now, there was someone that said that you're driving for dollars. God bless you. That is so hard to do in this market. There's apps, there's all kinds of stuff. It's really challenging. I find bandit signs to be garbage. Now, someone says they do distribution on this, I think in St. Petersburg, and it works. That's great because you got real deals and you can sell them. But in a lot of instances, I think on a lead flow sign, most people with bandit signs, it's kind of junk. I would go through realtors and I would go through networking. And I would find, like I said, I think RIAs are crap. I would find out in your local market who are the best 5 or 10 wholesalers and get on their lists. There are Facebook groups that you could use. But this is not hard to do. Like you could do this in an afternoon. When I started in this business, what I did is I was trying to look for money, which we're gonna get to in a minute. And I went through and I wrote down every regional bank that was within 2 hours drive. And what we looked at was if it was like a Wells Fargo or Bank of America or a national name, or they have like a really pretty commercial, I didn't call them. And I called all the off-market smaller ones. And that's how I found my first couple of loans, was through people with commercial departments. It's the same here. If you call every title company around, or you use your network, or ask people who are already doing this, and you find who the wholesalers are, you can get on a wholesale list nearly immediately. Now, can't you wholesale a wholesale?
Yes.
But it's hard.
Very hard.
The wholesaler is going to get most of the profit, and you don't have a great buyer's list. So here is mostly a fix and flip type of a market. That's what you're going to lead with if you use these types of strategies. All right, so we got fix and flip strategies, and let's talk about what you're going to do from a pay strategy. So what are some things that we can do to pay? Like, what do you guys know about? What have you heard about that are pay strategies?
You can do cold calling.
So you can do postcards, you can do cold calling. What else?
Advertise on Facebook.
Sure. Facebook for sellers. What else?
PPC,
Yep. What else?
texting,
What else?
Billboards.
Okay. So I would think these are most of your strategies. You got postcards, cold calling, Facebook. We talked about network marketing up top, texting, PPC, billboards. This is my opinion. If you're a newbie, a billboard's not the right angle for you. Billboards are branding a lot more than they are marketing. It's completely and totally non-targeted. But there are some things you could think about. TV. It's very expensive, but you can do it, or you can also use YouTube. And I can tell you about both of those too. So there's a difference between having a cultivated list and having people kind of find you. If I was going to say, where do people find you? On that list, what would you say people can find you?
PPC,
PPC? What else? I would say YouTube and TV, right? Mm-hmm. So PPC, YouTube, and TV. All right. It's a good camera angle. It gets my bald spot. All right. And then over here, let's go. You find them. And it's basically, I would say, postcards, Facebook for sellers, or text. Right? Do you guys agree?
Cold calling.
Cold call too. Yeah, so cold call's up there too. So you find them. What's the important thing about finding them? What would you say?
you're not reaching out to everybody else
Sure.
in addition to me.
So what do you need to have in order to find these people? You need a list.
Yeah, I mean, it needs to be people who own a house. It
Sure.
needs to be people who might want to sell that house.
It's a motivated seller.
Yeah.
So the difference between a newbie and a pro is not necessarily the marketing efforts, but it's who you're reaching out to. So this is harder. It's much harder, but it's cheaper. This is easier, but it's more expensive. It just is. So let's start with this. You know, we're well into the 21st century at this point. When I got into this business, it was all about postcards. And postcards worked because they were cheap and they were easy, and you basically went to a couple of different places. The postcards lost their effectiveness because everybody taught it and everybody did it. But it does still work. Cold calling is great, but if you're calling the wrong people, it doesn't work. I have found Facebook marketing for sellers to be ineffective. It works in some markets. It doesn't work great here. We don't do a ton of it. Texting kind of fits with the rest of this. If you look at these two different boards, right? This is where you have to go hustle and this is where you have to pay. To summarize, these are cheaper, these are more expensive, these are hard to find because you need to know who you're looking for. So what I think you need to do is you need to invert your funnel. And what you need to do is you need to put the expensive stuff kind of here. So let's go through this and let's talk about it. So the expensive stuff is TV, PPC, and I would put YouTube, but YouTube is really not that expensive. We can come back to it. So with PPC and TV, you need to be really good at capturing leads. They're very, very, very expensive. We did not start doing this until we were in business for more than 10 years because to buy TV, it's expensive. We live in a small market, but we still spend over 30 grand a month just on TV leads. PPC is f***ing unforgiving. If you can't get back to that person immediately, like if you can't answer live, you have a less than 5% chance of converting that person. So let me tell you the difference between something like a postcard and PPC. What's your favorite pizza place?
Mellow mushroom.
Okay, anybody else?
I like all mushrooms.
I used to be a Papa John's guy. I like Papa John's. I haven't eaten Papa John's in a long time because I'm getting old and I'm getting fat and it's hard to lose weight. But I used to love Papa John's. What does Papa John's do? Like, what do they do all the time?
Advertise.
They mail you a brochure, right? What do you do when you get that in the mail?
Put it in the drawer.
I would think you do one of two things. You toss it or you put it in the drawer. And if you have one in the drawer, what I always used to do is I'd put it in the drawer, but I'd look at the one that I had and see if this is a better deal than that one, what the expiration date was, and I'd put the one I like better in the drawer and I put the other one in the trash. And when did you call on that deal?
When I was hungry.
When you needed it, right? But you didn't do it immediately and it wasn't there. That is what real estate postcards are. You might send 30 of them before they call you. I literally have had someone come in with 9 of my mail pieces and said, okay, I'm ready. But that is a postcard. If you are starving and you're ordering a pizza and someone doesn't answer the phone, what do?
Google.
You call the next place.
Call the next one.
You just keep going down the list, right? Like I'm a dad, I go to bed at 9 o'clock, but I wasn't always this way. When I was younger, what I would do is out partying and I come home and it's 2 and I want a f***ing pizza. So I'd call and they were closed. And then I would go to Google and I would just keep calling until somebody answered. And I knew, damn it, that I was placing an order for a pizza and it was gonna be there. Now, sometimes I passed out between when I ordered it, when I got there, but that's a different story. But the point is that's PPC. If you don't live answer, they're gonna keep going. So if you don't have the ability to answer the call with a PPC phone immediately, they're gonna go on to somebody else. They're gonna call the next pizza joint. Should you do PPC? Yes, but you need to be serious about phone answer in both of these two places. You can outsource this to a call center, but it's way better if you do it in-house with people who are trained, who understand your core values, who know what you are going to deliver. Most of you are way, way, way too new in the business to have core values or a mission board or a huge staff. So doing this type of stuff, I find to be risky. Now, I will say this, there are certain people who are great at PPC. They're techier than me, they're most likely younger, they are great at it. That's cool. If you can be focused and you can get the phone answered when people call, awesome. But these are expensive leads and so too are these if you don't have phone answer. The poor man's version is YouTube. YouTube, you can follow people around the internet and they will call you and hopefully we'll sell you something, and it's a much easier list. And you can get this through marketing companies. You can find ad space here. This is not terribly difficult to do once you figure it out. If you find a PPC provider, they can almost certainly sell you YouTube ads. These are a little bit more expensive, but more than expensive, you got to be kind of a pro. They're less forgiving. That's number one. So these are less money. Postcards. What else do we have on our list? Cold call. Blue. So when you get into this less expensive stuff, cold call, pay-per-click, Facebook, texting, this is the difference between going from a hobbyist to a pro. You are going to have, going to orange, a monthly budget. Damn it, we're not going to orange. We broke it. Well, that's real. All right, so there we go. So what we're going to have is a monthly budget. What many people do is they want to be me. I send out $100,000 a month in marketing and advertising, and I am going to kick your ass because I have an entire staff. But I'm not you. I'm me. Be you. So when you build a list that you can speak to. And these are some examples. If you're in the military, talk about it. People work with people that are like them and they are familiar with and they feel comfortable with. In a lot of instances, it doesn't come down to price, it comes down to likability. So if you are going to build a list around you and who it is that you like. Or what do you want to target? What you mentioned is fix and flips. The gentleman from St. Petersburg wants a specific house to flip. You can take this mass of data and you can make it consumable to you. And then the message needs to be about you. What we're going to talk about here is the list. Richmond, 1.2 million people in the MSA. There's 400,000 rooftops. We work with a data provider who has limited that down. And what are the motivators? I know some of them, I don't know all of them. Because it's nuanced and we pay someone to do that. There are service providers out there that you can find to do this list. You can go to ListSource, you can go to Listability, you can go to all these other things. What people typically teach and train on is you want to go non-owner occupants, people that are out of town, high equity. Everybody knows that. So find something that's specific to you. Say something in your marketing and advertising that makes you different and you stand out. If you're on my list, you're probably on everybody else's list too. But what did you say? How did you say it? How did you convey it? That is so much more important than the list. And then when they call you or you call them, having something compelling to say that prioritizes that person. So the list is not a magic elixir. It's a place to start. So what I would say is find a list provider, call the list to what it is that you want. One of the questions you asked is what's the difference between a wholesale or a fix and flip or like a rental, right? A rental for us is in a price band. We almost never buy anything that we rent that's more than $200,000. We don't flip anything that's less than $500,000. Those are two very different distinguishers. And with those two different distinguishers, that can help you define your list. What do you want and go after it? The easy kind of top of the market way to look, you can look at assess value is an easy way to go. But you can start with ListSource, Listability. There's hundreds of these things and we can provide you with more affiliate arrangements with people that we have that solve these types of things with lists, but that is where the list starts. But the list is not the most important thing. It helps. Calling the right people or talking to the right people is the process. But what you want to get to is you want to be consistent. You want to do it month over month. So what most people say is, I spend $1,000 a month on marketing. You're never going to make a dent. You got to get to a place where you can actually have something real, or you must be super, super, super consistent. Broke the pen, I'm burping, perfect. All right, so around these subjects, what did I not answer that you want me to get deeper into?
I hear people talk about cold calling. I have no idea. I guess, this list you're talking about, you have to have a list of phone numbers too.
Right.
But I mean, what do I do? Am I sitting there calling one person at a time?
So there's 100 different ways you can do this, right? You need the list. Then you can skip trace the list. And after you skip trace the list, you can go through a dialer. So let me say this, public service announcement. These rules change all the time. I'm not going to get into texting a lot because it's somewhat dangerous. We don't text anymore ourselves. We have a third party who does it. We buy the leads directly from them. We pay a premium for the leads because there's all these rules. So if you're going to do an outbound dial, follow the rules. In a course that I have, I'll show you exactly who our service providers are that we recommend. But I'll give you two names. For example, with skip tracing, we use a company called Lead Sherpa. I don't know how to spell Sherpa. I got a C in spelling. And with a dialer, you can either use Mojo or you can use ZenCall. So these come down to the list and having something compelling to say, and this is outbound, and it's cheap. Now, I don't have the ability to get into how to do this all right now, but what I can tell you, and the takeaway is, if you want to go from someone who's part-time to full-time, you need to treat this as full-time. We will spend as much time covering topic 1 out of 5 that we will spend from 2 through 5, because this is where the business is. We offer courses on this, you can watch it later, but the whole point is you need to be an absolute pro here or you are never gonna make it to the next level. Does that make sense? But on this stuff, start with the lead, Sherpa, ZenCall, Mojo, that's who you can use. Is there anything I missed? And again, this is an overview, but is there anything that I missed with lead gen? I feel like we hit on decisions, process, types, consistency, and money. The only thing I really didn't talk about was a budget. I think if you use it right, at 5 to 10K per month, somewhere between 5 and 10K per month, you should be able to generate, if you're doing this right, somewhere between 2 and 5 times your spend. That's about right. We are right around 4 to 5%, depending on the source, but if you blended it all out, it's around 4 times spend is your gross. So what you want to look at when you get into this is do what you can, start doing deals, find a foothold, get some momentum, and move. And once that stuff all starts to happen, take as little as you can to live on and support your staff and reinvest it into leads and staff. That is how you build a consistent long-term business. But it all starts here. I feel like I've done a good job of overviewing this, but I'm a pro. I've been doing this for a very long time. I get paid to speak in front of crowds, to teach this stuff, and I'm just riffing this. So let me ask you, what do you want more detail on anything on these 3 sheets?
Thanks, Frank. That was great. So I'm just thinking ahead. And so if we start doing some of these things and the phone does start to ring, or like people are filling out something on a website or something, I'm a little confused about what happens next. It's like, are you answering the phone? Is somebody else answering? What do they do? Like, what do they do when the phone rings? How do you deal with that? I mean, I know ultimately you want to end up talking to the person and seeing if it's a good deal, but I'm just kind of murky on like what that process is.
So let me ask you a couple questions. I don't mean to be a dick. Do you want to be rich?
Yes.
Who doesn't? But who do you know that's rich that didn't have a plan? You need to get educated on the process. And what comes down to the process, if you are going to spend your money to send out marketing and advertising, you better have a plan. And what the plan needs to include is you need a script, you need a CRM, you need a ton of things behind the scenes.
What's a CRM, Frank?
I'll explain it. It's a customer relationship manager. It's one of these things that's either, like a name that gets thrown out there a ton is Podio. We've moved to Salesforce. There's other options. But the point is, if you get a lead, that information gets entered into a database so you can follow up with them. Like your cell phone has a CRM. It's called your Apple Contacts. That is your own personal CRM, but you need to have something a little bit more professional. The thing to do with leads is this: commit, have a system, have a back office, copy someone. This is no longer novel. There are so many people who do this. People call me all the time about buying my house. Like, it's not hard to do. It's harder to convert, to be consistent, and take the next steps. That's the important stuff. We teach you how to build a back office. Build a back office. That includes a CRM, it includes scripts, it includes if someone does call, you're ready for it. And to answer your question, do I answer the phones? No. My first employee was someone who'd answer the phones because I hated people calling me back on postcards. I'm a huge, big dude, I'm intimidating in person, and I'm a wimp over the phone. So that was my first hire. And that's true to me. I'm good at other stuff. I don't like that. I can tell you what to do, but I don't want to be the one they yell at. So let's go off the lead gen, and let's go to number 2 on the list, which is construction. I told you my affinity for construction a moment ago. I am from a family of construction workers, and I have a degree in construction management. And that makes me absolutely qualified to do none of this because you're relying on unreliable people that we talked about with construction. But what I'm going to talk about with construction is the 2 ways to do it. Self or sub. Does anyone want to guess what self and sub means?
You do it on your own versus subcontractors.
Yep. So while we're filming this video, it's 2021, end of the year, supply chain problems, labor shortages, like these are the things we're dealing with. We're dealing with the Great Resignation, we're dealing with the material supplies, like everywhere you look, you're like, you're screwed, you're not getting your Christmas gifts because they're just not gonna be there in time. Like that's real. We just flipped a house a couple of weeks ago and we did not have a range. It's an $850,000 house. It's beautifully staged. We couldn't find the freaking range. So we ended up buying one off of Craigslist that was really close to the one we spec'd. It's like 2 years old, had a dent in it. Like, we gotta do it because I'm not putting an $850,000 house on the market without a range. That's real. That's construction. That is part of what you're gonna deal with no matter what, even if you're really good at this. So what I recommend in most instances on construction is this. We self-perform nothing. And what I mean by self-perform is I don't do trim, I don't do cabinetry, we don't do paint, we don't do masonry, we don't do anything. We do everything from a management standpoint. What we do is we have project managers who then oversee subs. So if you're doing 1 or 2 at a time, you can do that yourself, just like you can go on lead appointments by yourself. But if you are going to do the subcontractor model, there's all or part. This is more of a GC, this is more of a sub. What do I mean by GC versus sub?
General contractor versus somebody who is skilled to put up cabinetry.
Perfect. So what you can do is you can do a couple of different things based upon your skill set, your staff, how you want to do this. I think from St. Pete, what you had said you do is you and your family do this, you pay cash, you do 1 at a time, and it's mostly lipstick on a pig, right? But you've probably got a team of painters and carpet suppliers that you do. So you are more or less the management, and you then have subs that do each one of the things in the house. What we do, and we do 100 to 200 houses per year, is we use a combination of GC and subs. Sometimes we outsource the entire house to just one person and let them do the entire thing. We get a bid, we get a contract, we tell them this is what we expect, and if there's any types of changes or overages based upon that contract, they come back to us and ask for extras. That is where we started. Find a subcontractor, let them do the house. There's more profit in it if you go from GC to partly sub. You manage or have someone manage and then pull things out where they're too expensive. This is what you want to get a line item. Bid. So if you can't read my incredible handwriting, that says line item bid. And what most GCs are going to do is they're going to give you a bid, it's going to be bulk, break it down, and they're human beings just like us. They're better at certain things than others. What you'll see if you break down a GC's bid is they're going to overcharge you for things they're not good at, because they're not going to do it. They're going to find a subcontractor. So if you look at the bid and you think you're being overcharged for something, that is where you break it out. You turn that into a sub. And that is how you start to build a team. This is not hard to do. Most of the houses you're flipping in St. Pete, there's probably other houses close by you that are also being flipped, right?
Yeah,
That's when you drive around and you look at other people's stuff and you start asking questions. That's how I found a painter, a stair guy. I found the metal guy that like does all this really cool custom shit for me. He was putting stairs up and I like stopped the car going 30 miles an hour. I jumped out, I got his number, and he's done like 100 jobs for us since. But that's how you start to build a sub bench. But if you start to break these things out, that is critically important. So I think you can do it with management. At first, I did it myself. I hired some project managers, and then we would manage GCs and subs. And that's how we handled construction. The most important thing in this business is your contract. If you're gonna put something under contract to sell or wholesale or do something with, which you guys didn't even ask about, is critical. So what you want on this is a strong contract. And if I was going to say a strong contract, what do you think that means? Like, what goes into a strong contract? It's a well-defined scope, responsibilities, that's easy to write, and then
Deadline?
timing, exactly, and cost. That's what goes into a contract. And if there's extras, you get those negotiated. Otherwise, it's to the contract. But if you write it with I expect this, with this time, you also want to make sure your draw schedule is defined. And that comes down to what do you pay and when. I will pay you within X number of days of either the job being partially complete or fully complete, because the last thing you want to do is give a subcontractor 50 grand and they moved it to Tahiti. Nowadays you can go to Cleveland with 50 grand, but you know the point.
I have a question about that. How do you find a sub other than just like driving around and hoping you stumble on somebody good? Like, is there any way to screen them or have any idea like if they're any good or they're felons or they're not felons or whatever? I mean, how do you screen them?
If you can find a non-felon who's any good at construction, good for you.
Making friends with construction people here, aren't we?
Here is the myth. Everybody thinks you find something and it's done. People are constantly getting better, staying the same, or getting worse. You're guilty of it, so am I, and so are they. You are never going to know. A great sub could become a terrible sub if you give them too much work. A bad sub with good leadership could become better. You can't say, go do this, hang out at Lowe's, talk to somebody at Home Depot, ask someone who's doing it, drive. Yes is the answer, do it all. Like if you want to be a pro, you got to do it all. And what you're going to get to is a need for staff, because you're going to start running out of time to do it all. And that's what we're going to get to in a minute. But there is no magic bullet. You have to do all of the things to be great at this. And this used to be an area and a business that wasn't highly competitive. That's over. It's competitive. So you got to be good at it. How would I start and give you something really actionable? Ask people who do this. You most likely know people who are doing it. They're all super busy. They don't want to share their subs. Drive around, look at their houses. That part's easy. Let me tell you how you ruin a good sub. You're not ready. You're not clear. They don't have a scope. You don't pay them. Do the opposite of those things. Clear scope. Job is ready. They show up. They know exactly what they need to do and everything is there for them. There's a schedule with which they're going to be paid. They are very clear. We have taken many, many, many solopreneurs and grown them into businesses. We have 2 brothers that work together that now are separate and both have staffs of 15. We have an electrician that was working by himself that now has 5 vans. And he does 90% of his work for us because we've helped him grow. That is what it comes down to. But there's no easy answer, and it's not one-off. And it's very much going to depend. I will tell you this. The contract is important, and there's one other thing. I'll just screw writing it. Separate material and labor whenever you can. If you can, like I was talking about with the contract, you're gonna see the areas where they overcharge you. People overcharge you for materials because they're buying it, they're sourcing it, it's a pain in the ass. If you can source stuff yourself and get them to do the install, you can save upwards 10 to 20% on each and every task. So these are just little things that you can pull out to make your life better and easier and have profit at the end. What else on construction? All right, let's go to money. So what we got next is money, which is huge. So let me give an overview about money. For those of you that are still employed, use the golden tickets as much as possible if you want to do a rental. I own 300 plus houses. It is impossible to get a fucking mortgage. It is the largest pain in the ass. I can find private money, I can find banks that'll give me corporate money, but finding an actual mortgage is hard because what real estate investors do is we make as much as humanly possible. We get depreciation, we get all these other things, and on paper it looks like you make nothing. So it's very hard. So if you have a job, use that to your advantage. Again, know your strengths and advantages. But with money, there's 2 real types. There's transactional funds. This is as fast as I can write. There's transactional funds, and then there's rentals. So transactional funds are any funds that you're going to use for a short period of time. These are for fix and flips, potentially for rentals that you're going to own for a short period of time. So I would think there are several sources. The place that you can start is friends and family. It's an easy place to find money. That's number 1. Number 2, Google. Transactional real estate funding. Like this used to be so hard, it's so easy. We have relationships with several of the institutional banks. One of the ones we use just was sold for $1.5 billion. Another one that we work with was purchased by Goldman Sachs. Like, it is not hard to find money. And the cool thing about it is the deal typically qualifies you. So in some instances when you're gonna do a fix and flip, the gentleman from St. Petersburg that flips houses and uses his own cash, if he builds the right staffing, which we'll get into next, if he uses some of that money as a down payment and then uses a traditional transactional funder for fix and flip, you can do 3 or 4 deals. You are going to usually need some skin in the game if you don't use 100% hard money. And there are some lenders out there who will give you 100%, but there's not tons of that, especially without a track record. So that is what transactional funds look like. When I started in this business, it was 12% plus for transactional funds. Nowadays, you can get it somewhere between 6 and 8%. That 4% adds up. It adds up a lot. It usually is going to take you 6 to 12 months to flip a house. 6 to 12% could be anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 in extra cost. There is a reason banks are some of the biggest businesses in the world. They know how to make money. So getting the right interest rate, getting the right terms makes sense. One thing I'll note with funding, there's a lot of people who partner. I've seen this 100 times. Like, I just partner and I give him 50% of the profit, he gives me the money. Look at the returns. Those returns are usually skewed in the favor of the lender, not you with the risk and doing all the work. I would find transactional funds instead of partnering. Rentals. How have any of you, so the gentleman from Seattle was finding rentals and he funded those before he quit his job. How would you recommend or think about funding rentals? Like, where would you start with everything we've talked about so far? Anybody? I mean, this isn't a terribly complicated answer. I'd start right here. Whoever your transactional funder is, see if they have a program that they do rentals. I'll guarantee you 85% of them do. And they're gonna give you their parameters. And their parameters usually look like this: 75% LTV, 1.25% DSCR. That's about it. So if you buy a house, you use transactional funds and you want to keep it, you do this. So let's make the math real easy. Let's just say we have a 200K, get a fresh piece of paper for this. Let's just say you have a house. I've always been partial to the big window in the middle, the door, and one window over here. And let's just say this house is worth 200K ARV. ARV is after repair value. Most of you know that, but if you don't, that's an ARV. If the bank will give you 75%, that means you need to be at 150K or less all in to get your money back. There's a guy with the beer, with the place with the pockets. They came up with a beautiful acronym for it. It's a cute acronym. They call it like Burr or something like that. I was doing this way before there was an acronym. What you want to do is you want to make sure you are in and out of this house for less than 150. Interest rates today are something in the neighborhood of 4. So at 150, you're going to be basically at, I'm going to just guess and say we're at $800 a month. 4, 6, yeah, that's close. If you have a 150K mortgage. So let's just say you buy the house, your purchase price is 100, and we probably wholesale 15 houses a month for roughly 100 grand. And then you can do the repairs. The real magic is you want to do it for under 50 grand, but if you do that for, let's say, 40 grand, your total spend's 140. Now there's some soft costs in here that they leave out in HGTV that are real, but let's just say you can do it this way. If you can get this thing funded in this number, I wish I had a green pen, it's plus 10K to you, which is a big deal. You can actually buy a rental, get it funded, and put that thing inside your portfolio and get paid to do it. But at that house, in my market, if that's a 200K house, that thing rents all day long for, as a 3-bedroom, it's $1,300. As a 4-bedroom, it's $1,600. Let me do the math real quick on something. At 150K times 5 divided by 1,000, yeah, I said 800, 750. That's fine. So if you were to do 800, I'm getting granular here and I know that, but just watch it. And we say that's times 1.25, that equals 1,000, right? Is that right? Mm-hmm. Okay, that equals $1,000. Frank, what's 1.25? That's your soft costs, that's your management fees, that's your taxes, that's the other stuff that goes in. So if you have a cost of 1,000, and you need to get at least a 125 cover, your rent needs to be greater than or equal to $1,250 a month. This $200,000 house, now we do this for way less, but it's, you know, roughly worth something in this neighborhood. A $200,000 house for us is probably going to rent for like $1,600 to $1,800. But it's easily going to hit 1,300, and if you get to 1,300, you're over 1,250. So what does that mean? That deal papers. You buy it. You can even overpay. You put in your construction, your 30 or 40 grand in construction. You have someone like this. Now these are not the Boy Scouts. They're going to charge you a ton. They're not going to be as good as a local bank, but you're still getting interest rates roughly at 4%, and this thing cash flows. Could you make more? Yeah. Do I? Yes. But is this a good way to start? Is this a good way to build and a good way to stack? And is this a good way to start the process and build a relationship? Damn right. You get 30 or 40 of these things with somebody like this, you can go to a local bank, you can do 100 other things. But the thing is, get to 50 and then look up. That's what we did. We have 300 now. I just did a refi last week where we refied out of 80 houses, and I have another 100 coming before the end of the year. Those are gonna make tons of extra money, but you gotta get there. And once you have scale, you can do it. So like everything else, don't overthink it. And that is money. What did I miss? Anything question-wise?
I have a question. So you said that you got to about 50 rentals using transactional funding before you decided to shop at local banks.
So I use the transactional funding
Yeah.
to build it.
Right.
Then I use one of the transactional funders to actually refi to.
Correct.
The terms sucked. Like those terms were over 6 where local banks were in the 4s, but I couldn't get my together enough to get funded with the local banks. They're harder to jump through the hoops. The transactional funders will lend to people who are less organized and charge a little bit more in interest.
Perfect. So what were some of the loops with the local banks? Like what were the hoops you had to get through? Was there certain thresholds? Like
Yeah. So about 5 years ago, I brought in a CFO. They're going to want to look at your taxes. They're going to want local banks. The transactional guys look at the deal, and all they look at is the deal. All they care about is the deal. They sell the paper to Wall Street, which means the mortgage, and they're going to get a yield. And they know you're probably, you're paying 200 basis points or 2% interest more than market. They can make money. That's all they're doing is trading. And I know this is complicated, but that's real. But if you're going to find the best terms, what you need to have is a job one. If you use the golden tickets, you're going to get 30-year funding at incredible rates, incredible terms. They're insanely great. If you have a full-time job, and we work with people who do this, and you do this whole thing, and you get that 150, it's worth 200, and then you go and refinance it with one of your golden tickets, that is the best funding you're going to find. It's going to be, right now in today's market, it's probably sub 325, 3.25% interest. It's incredible. 30-year fixed, hold it, sit, go. If you've already quit your job and you start here, the things these guys are going to ask for are tax returns. They're going to ask for a rent roll. They're going to look at real performance. So they're normalized, which means that's what we hope, and this is reality. So they're going to look at rent collections, bank statements, all of these things. The other thing is they're never going to really tell you what they were looking for. They're small banks. They have risk parameters. They have bosses. These people are less sophisticated than you. There is no doubt. If you meet a banker, they come in, they feel confident, they're wearing their golf shirt, their beautiful button down, and you get intimidated talking to a banker because that's how you're raised. They don't know about business. And I've learned that. I used to be intimidated. I'm like, what the f was I intimidated about? These guys understand so much less than I do about this. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to make money. They know how to be gatekeepers. But the gatekeepers have rules, and those rules constantly change, and they never tell you what the rules are. So it's hard. But what I will tell you is if you can get into the game and do it here, you get depreciation, you get all the good stuff. You might overpay a little bit, but you're in the game.
but long term, it's the way to go.
Yeah, and if you move yourself into a better financing choice, you can. So we're going through massive, massive inflation, and there was some kid I know that posted on Facebook, like, what should I do about inflation? It's like, hey, you should buy 300 houses 10 years ago. That's what I did. And now that all this massive inflation, there's 30% growth from when I refinanced 2 years ago to now, it gives you tons of money. And we were prepared when interest rates dipped, we refinanced. But you can still get really rich owning 50 at 5 to 6% interest. Go back and look. In the 1970s, interest rates were double digits for primary residences. 6% is so stinking cheap. So there's in Virginia, the taxes are really low. So you can offset this. The insurance is really low. So start, go. Then through your networking, which we had it up on one of these sheets, talk to a banker, talk to a local banker. What does a local banker look like? Their name is not Wells Fargo or Bank of America or Citi. It's a small regional bank, and that bank has a commercial division. The commercial division is clutch. Those are the people who are the bankers who are going to really lend you. It's not the teller. It's not the side you usually go to. It's the other side of the bank. So when you call around and ask, you just say, do you guys have a commercial division? Yes. When you talk to a vice president, because everyone in the bank, including the secretary, is a vice president, you'll talk to a vice president and you ask that person, what do you think of single family rentals? Are you guys favorable on those? If the answer is yes, could I bring you some of mine? And that's how you matriculate the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anything else with money?
You mentioned DSOR.
DSCR?
Yes.
Yep.
What does that stand for?
Debt service coverage ratio.
And LTV?
Loan to value. Do you want me to go into it or does that work? Yes or no?
That works.
Cool. Anything else on money? So let me say one last thing before we move off of money. Money is a major hurdle. It is. Most people think money means you're not a good enough person, I'm broke. There's all these different things. If you want to get professional in this business, what you need to realize is money's just another thing. It's cash. It's just another thing. It's part of the entire cycle. Sometimes you got a bunch, sometimes you don't have enough. It's just part of it. Sometimes you got great people, sometimes you don't. That's just part of it. You have to figure out the cash piece. But when you start accruing assets, it becomes a lot easier. All right. Let's get into staff. All right, quickly, who has at least 2 full-time employees? Does anybody? It's mostly solopreneurs and some VAs. One of you has 1 full-time person and that's it, is that right? All right. So, I'll tell you a quick story. I used to work at a publicly traded home builder. I wanted to quit and start my own business. And I always used to come home and say, I'm gonna go out at 8 o'clock and I'm gonna start working on my business. And I was exhausted, I was tired, I'd already worked 12 hours, and I'm beat. And I would invest my time to do that. And it was really, really hard to get anywhere because I didn't have time to focus. When I quit and I started my own business, what I realized is the problems were back. I'm on my own, I'm doing all this stuff. I don't have time to do the things that grow the business because I'm working in the business. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the easiest way to do it. You have a major need. The gentleman from St. Petersburg has a major need because he's building houses and he needs someone to help him oversee it. That makes sense. The other thing is weakness. The things you procrastinate doing, you probably suck at. That's why you procrastinate it. It's a lot easier to procrastinate if you only do things, not to procrastinate if you only do things you like. I hate paying bills. I don't mind signing the checks. I hate doing the accounting. So my first hire was an accountant. Most of the people who do this, their first hire is a bookkeeper or an accountant because they're not good at it. They're good at deal sourcing and doing different things. So that is a big part of it. There's 2 ways to go. There's 1099 or there's full-time. 1099 is a subcontractor. Just like in construction, you can pick a subcontractor. Pretty easy. Full-time is a big deal. Full-time is you have enough confidence in yourself as a business owner to tell someone in their family they can rely on you to get a paycheck. That's a big deal. It's a big deal to me. I think about that, I worry about that, I think about that every single time a job offer goes out. We got 50 plus people whose livelihood depends on me and my business. So I think about that a lot. So if you have the confidence that you can pay for this person, go full-time. But if you don't, start 1099. Now there are rules. A 1099 that looks like full-time is full-time and you can end up triggering an audit. So follow the rules. And I know this because I did it and I got audited. And I lost. So to that end, know the difference, make sure they are the difference, but those are the 2 ways to do it. Hire for need, hire for weakness. Something people often overlook with staff. This might sound arrogant, I don't care. I don't mow my own lawn. I don't fold my own laundry. I don't clean my own house. I don't cook. Those are tasks that are 50 to 60, 75 bucks an hour. I can make a ton more money in my business paying someone else to do those things. If you can do that inside of your business, pay someone to do something that frees you up to spend time generating leads and making revenue, that's the fulcrum that you have to look at. Is there an easy answer? Is it I have so much in the bank I should do this? No. These are personal decisions, but if you hire for need and weakness and you know that you can pay them, that's when you can add staff. What other questions? Anything else with staff?
So you hired an accountant as your first employee?
Yeah.
Who was your second and third?
My second was an acquisitions manager. My third was a project manager. I turned all those over a bunch in the beginning. My bookkeeper, poor lady, used to come every other Thursday for like 2 hours, and then she finally told me she was coming like Wednesday and Thursday, and she's like, you probably need someone full time. And then I really liked her and I trusted her. I knew she wasn't gonna steal from me, so I hired somebody who would do a lot of the grunt work, and then she would show up and she would be the brains. And like I said earlier, with the question of you wanna do it once and be done with it, it's not how it works. You gotta always iterate and change and grow, and that's how it is. I hated answering the phones, so I hired somebody to do that. I had a project manager, so that's how it went. And then I 1099 property management, I 1099 headhunting and recruiting, I 1099 that stuff, and then we got to a point where subcontracted it, and we got to a point where we could bring it in-house.
When you got to employee number 2 and number 3, like, did you have an office, or how did that look?
So I like leverage, and I needed to get, I'm just like everybody else, I needed to get leverage over myself. I was in a unique spot. I quit my job and I had enough money that I really didn't have to do anything. I knew I wanted to grow a business. I know most people don't have that problem, but that's where I was. So what I did is I got an office and I hired staff and I made myself go to the office, and I gave myself an ability to have people that I had to pay because it got me to work harder. And that was the carrot and the stick for me. But everybody's wired that way. Like, what motivates you? Like, what do you find fun? What keeps you challenged? What keeps you in the game? And figure it out and turn this shit into a game. And if you're getting into this business, don't do things you're weak at, because you're not gonna like them. Find someone else who loves that. Like my accounting, the lady that I hired at first, I hired 2 ladies. And my business was so small back then, I had 1 laptop. And I would drop the laptop off at her house and I would go to the gym and she would call me and I would go back and pick up the company laptop. That's where it started. Then we went to someone else who helped, like we started to grow. But like you can start small. I did. What else with staff? So what is what? What do I do with this? What do I do with the deal? What is what? What do you want? What do you need? What makes your life better? I can tell you all the parameters of what goes into a rental, what goes into a flip, what goes into a wholesale. But I have a very different wallet than you. My attorney will tell me, this is a good deal, you should do it. And I want to tell him, go f yourself. You don't understand my finances. You don't understand if that's a good deal or a bad deal to me. Like, you might think it's a good deal. I do not. He might think that's a good meal. He likes to dip everything in cheese. I disagree with that decision as well. So what you need to know is what to you. I had someone call me in the last downturn. I just lost my job. I have 400, 600 grand. Let's just go with 600 grand. I'm gonna buy some rentals. It's like, you have no job? He's like, no job. I'm like, cool. You're not getting a mortgage. It's downturn. It's a housing abyss. What are you gonna do? Well, I'm gonna collect rents. I go, how much a month do you need to live on? He's like, I need like 8 grand. I'm like, you're gonna take your 600 and you're gonna get 8,000 a month? That's 96,000 a year. That's a 15% return. You're never doing that with rentals. Like, what you need to do is chill, live on your 600 grand, find another job because you have a nest egg, which most people don't have, and then make a decision on what you wanna do with the real estate. It's no different. It's kind of like with staff. If you enjoy something and you stop liking doing it, hire someone to do it. You might say the best thing for me to do right now is to limit expense and live on my cash. Cool. I need to generate more cash, wholesale. I want to generate some cash but have some long-term holdings with it. Well, you can fix and flip and you can turn it into a rental. It depends on you first. Now, there's this greater thing called the market. The market matters. Like right now, anything can sell. It's bananas. That's not always the case. Like there are times we went and looked at the inventory of 12 years ago and things were sitting. The average days on markets in the best neighborhood in Richmond is an area, they call it an area here. That area, 12 days today. In 2008, it was 91 days. Because that's what happens. The market is different. So understand what's happening in the market. When the inventory is sitting for 91 days, that's an incredible time to buy and hold. When the inventory is selling in 12 days on average across an entire area, it's time to sell. So you dictate it, but so too does the market. And sometimes you want to reap profits, take reward, take money off the table. That's it. So I do not want to rent a $500,000 house. I want to rent a $150,000 to $200,000 house. I don't want to fix and flip a $150,000 house. I want to fix and flip a $500,000 house. Do you have any guesses as to why? The buyers with a $150,000 house are a pain in the ass. Do you know what else? The renters of a $500,000 house are a pain in the ass. So I want to rent to people who are happy to be in a house, and I know that about my market. And I want to sell to people that want to spend $500,000 to $850,000 or $1 million, because I can make 17% of $1 million. And that's $175,000. That's worth it for showing up. If I make 17% of 150, it's like 20 something grand. You can lose that in one bad subcontract. So pick and choose your spots based upon the market, you, and what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And that is how you pick. All right, what did I miss? Any other questions? All right, no more questions? We got a pretty busy day. We're gonna go meet with probably 50 dignitaries from town. We have a cool open house. We're bringing up our 100 Affordable, which is this cool program. We're building 100 affordable houses in the city of Richmond. There's nothing else, thanks. And I'm chubby and hungry, so let's go eat.